to Christ. Beware that you don't go to Poland and say, oh, that's the image of Jesus. Oh, that is so magnificent. That's wonderful. He said, beware of those things. That you're not spoiled through philosophy and vain deceit. The devil is a deceiver, and he'll try to tell you all kinds of things, but you're following the spirit of the world and not after Christ. There's always a difference. Now, there's a man in the Bible by the name of Demas. Demas started out as being one of the fellow laborers of the Apostle Paul. Demas would say, Paul, I love the Lord, I love the Bible, I want to serve you, I want to do whatever I can. And Paul said, hey, great, you know. So we see in Philemon, verse 24, Marcus, Aristarchus, Demas, Lucas, my fellow laborers, he was one of the guys. He was a watchman on the wall. Now look in 2 Timothy chapter 4. The last letter that Paul wrote in this life was 2 Timothy. Look what he said. Demas hath forsaken me, having loved this present world, and is departed. What happened to Demas? What happened? He walked away. He departed. A time of departing is at hand, my friend. And he loved the world. He said, you know what? This is not for me. And he left. And you know what? The cult leader, the Apostle Paul, didn't say, hey, boys. He didn't chase him down and have him killed. That's actually what happens in some cults. When you leave the cult, man, you're out. Okay, you're dead. But Paul said, you know what? Poor Demas. I considered him one of my fellow laborers. I loved him. He worked for me. But he loved this present world. And you know what? Maybe Paul could have seen it then. And people can see it in us. They know. They know whether or not. And so you know what? Don't be a Demas. 2 Peter chapter 2, for if after they escape the pollutions of the world through the knowledge of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, they are again entangled therein and overcome, the latter end is worse with them than the beginning. Remember the Bible study we did with Ruth. We mentioned this verse. For it had been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than after they have known it, to turn from the holy commandment delivered unto them. This is not just good advice. This is a warning that we need to stay away from the spirit of this world and not have the thorns come in choking out the word in our life and all this. That's what we need to be careful of, friend. We need to, if we're going to be watchmen, let's watch this one first. Let's make sure that it doesn't affect us first. Okay? It's kind of like, what they tell you on an airplane. On an airplane, the stewardess is up there doing this and talking all this stuff, and you can't really understand. But she says, in case of a loss of cabin pressure, a mask will fall down from the top. Take the mask firmly in this hand, take the strap, firmly secure it over your mouth. Do this before you try to help your neighbor, help yourself first. Put the mask over your face, pull the strap tightly, and this is my favorite part, breathe normally. Now, if there is a loss of cabin pressure in the plane that I am in, I promise you I won't breathe normally. But they tell you to take care of yourself first. Then you can help other people. I would not be any good to anybody out there if I was watching out for everybody else's problems and everybody else's dangers and I wasn't aware of my own. I wouldn't be any good to anybody. I've learned this. I've learned a little bit of wisdom. That's why I take a little time off to go hunt with my son or whatever. I've learned that there's some things I have to deal with me. Then I can be of some good to everybody else. Be careful that we don't let the thorns come in and choke out our lives. Let's watch what's going on here. 1 John 5, for whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith. Who is he that overcometh the world but he that believeth that Jesus is the Son of God, conquering the world. 1 John chapter 4, verse 5, they are of the world, therefore speak they of the world, and the world heareth them. We are of God, he that knoweth God heareth us, he that is not of God heareth not us. Hereby we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of error. And again, some people just don't get it. So all these verses I've had, love God, hate the world, love the Bible, hate harlequin romances. Love God, love psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. Hate contemporary Christian, hate Lady Gaga and Peter Frampton and all that. Just stuff popping into my head here. Hate that stuff. Don't want anything to do with it. I'll be honest with you. I mean, if I were to really let myself go, man, I'd be listening to the Eagles and Leonard Skinner and all kinds of stuff. Because it really appeals to my flesh. But I can't do it. I won't do it. Can't have anything to do with it. So I'm going to give you a real simple test. I mean, this is going to be amazingly simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a picture up on the screen here, and I want you to say out loud. Now, I won't be able to hear you. But I want you to say out loud as you're watching this whether or not this is worldly or godly. Here we go. Test number 1. Worldly or godly? Worldly. If you love this guy, you don't love this guy. Test number 2. Worldly or godly? Godly. See how simple this is? It's real simple. Go back to little Marilyn Manson here. Here he is with his bottle of absinthe. Absinthe is a... man, it's nasty stuff. From what I know about absinthe... By the way, absinthe is wormwood. And it is used by occultists to go into a trance very quickly. Okay, familiar spirit guy. Okay, worldly, godly, and we all know the difference. Here's another one: worldly or godly? Worldly. Worldly or godly? Worldly. Wait a minute. This is Rick Warren's church, one of his venues at his campus. That's Rick Warren's church. Okay? Worldly or godly? It's worldly. And if it's worldly, it cannot be godly. It cannot be. If it's worldly, it cannot convey the message of the real Jesus. We just looked at the verses that explain that. It can't do it. This is not church the way it's supposed to be. Worldly or godly? You see, there is a right kind of singing and there is a wrong kind of singing. And we just know the difference, don't we? See how easy this is? We just know the difference. Worldly or godly? Oh my goodness. That's worldly. Worldly or godly? That's godly. Worldly or godly? But Pastor Mike, I take the winnings that I have and I donate 10%. You know what? If you're gambling, don't send me 10% of anything that you won from gambling. I don't want it. It's worldliness, and I want nothing to do with it. Worldly or godly? I believe in tithing. I believe if you want to tell God thank you, write a check. Okay? I didn't say you had to write it to me. I'm just saying tithing is God's plan, and it's God's way. Worldly or godly? Worldly. Worldly or godly? You know why I picked these two pictures? Here are pictures of preachers preaching the gospel. One is an old-time preacher out in the middle of the city. People are gathered around him listening to him preach.